is the Orange Zone, sponsored by Apex Entertainment.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Orange Zone podcast. Make sure you are liking, commenting, and subscribing. We really appreciate all the support that you guys always provide for us. Today, we have a stat crew. We have Ashley Wenskoski. We have SU basketball legend Lawrence Moten. I'm Samantha Croston. We're here to talk some hoops. Syracuse men's basketball, the season's winding down, and we have questions. What's the deal with the ACC tournament? Where is this team going? Where would we like them to be? All those questions and more are going to be answered on today's episode, so let's get into it. Since the last time we spoke, Syracuse had one triple overtime win followed by 2 losses. Let's start with the triple overtime win. Who watched it? What'd you guys think?
So you were there, right, shooting it?
I was.
I was anchoring back at the station. Quite the debacle that turned into. What were they leading by? 6 with like under a minute to go? 2 possessions.
Hefty.
It was a lot.
It was hefty.
And then we saw not 1, not 2, but 3 overtimes. But you know what? They came out with a win, so that was a positive. Thought for a minute there we were going to rival the 6 overtimes Madison Square Garden situation.
Yeah, that was a will take it win.
Yeah.
You know, because I look at that game and went to 3 overtimes, but one of the things that I'll take out of that is, you know, the leading free throw shooter in the ACC missed 2 free throws.
It was bad.
Brown. He missed 2 free throws in a crucial part of the game that even if he hit 1, I think that would have been a problem for us. So, hey, I give credit to our Dome fans for yelling and screaming, and he missed them both. We went in the triple overtime, and we got the win.
And I do appreciate that. I think that is a positive perspective. On the other hand, I will say, I did feel like there was a version where that game did not even need to go into overtime at all.
Sure.
There were free throw opportunities on the Syracuse side, particularly with J.J. Starling at several times throughout those periods and right at the end of the game there, where I really felt like he too could have, you know, that it could have been the final nail were he to have made a couple that he didn't make. So again, I will say I felt like compared to some of the other games we've seen throughout the course of this season, there was fight. There was fight. There was a time in that I think maybe second overtime period where Syracuse was down by
7.
Yeah, I was just going to say that second overtime,
yeah.
Things looked a little scary.
I mean, that's astonishing to be, you know what I mean, to be down by 7. It really could have been easy for that team to just give up, knowing what everyone is saying, knowing what people think about them, knowing what, you know, the media is pushing out. And they were able to really overcome all of that and come out with a win.
Yeah, I mean, a win's a win. Obviously, it was not the prettiest of wins, but they came out of there with a win. You were there. What was like the atmosphere like during those 3 overtimes?
You know what? What Moten said is true. Like, credit to a lot of the fans there because everybody hung around. Like, that is the thing that I do appreciate about covering a team like Syracuse is these fans are so damn loyal. Yeah. Not that other fan bases aren't, but the way that fans continue to show up for this Syracuse team, even knowing what kind of season it is, even knowing, you know, what's on the line and what they're playing for, everyone's like, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're just drinking and they're like, hey, we'll stay for a couple extra overtimes.
Sure.
Who doesn't love extra basketball? But honestly, I felt like it was still pretty packed in there. Couple people trickling out in that second overtime loss, I feel like, or in that second overtime period, thinking maybe it's going to go a different way. But I have to say, most of the people hung around to see what would happen at the end. I think it was mostly positive, but honestly, are there times where, you know, J.J. Starling is missing a free throw and you are hearing a collective, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely,
you are.
sure.
But that's fandom, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought it was an honest fan base.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say one thing, and we've been getting on him all year, and I'm going to give him a little credit. Eddie Lampkin's been playing okay this last 2 months. You know, I'm a hard critic when it comes to evaluating talent, but for the most part, he's been playing very solid.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was some question marks there at the beginning of the season with it. I mean, Autry was talking about it, his conditioning and whatnot, but now it seems like he puts up a double-double every single time he's out there. I mean, his rebounding has really been fantastic, which is what you brought him here to do, really.
Yes.
And honestly, I felt like his attitude after that game was good. You know, we were able to go in there, talk to some of the players, and I was appreciating, you know, just what he said. He seems like the kind of guy to me who, despite the circumstances and the fact that, you know, this year has had some turns, he is in it until the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy who is going to truly give you whatever his best is every single game. Not to mention, in that game against Boston College, I mean, he was getting minutes. Like, I forget how many minutes he played, but it was something really high. Like, he was really doing everything that he could to help this team succeed. And that is something that I'll remember a player like him for.
Yeah, you forget in a game like that, right? You out there for an extra 15 minutes. I mean, someone like a JJ and Eddie Lampkin playing like close to 50 minutes out there. Kind of crazy.
Absolutely cooking.
Yeah.
And 15 minutes in real time in basketball is like 45.
Yeah.
No, right. It's honestly so true, though. Like, you're
Yes.
absolutely right about that between the starting and the stopping. Like, just to stay in that kind of game mentally shows you a lot about, what kind of team this year's team is. That being said, in the next week, they lose to Miami, and then they lose at home to UNC, 88-82. Ashley was covering the UNC game, yes?
Yes.
And what did you think about that week in that stretch?
Well, let's start with Miami. First of all, so sorry we weren't able to do a show last week. I was feeling a little under the weather. If you watch us on TV, you heard my voice has been a mess for a couple weeks. But thank you to everyone who came out to the live show. That was wonderful at Apex. That was great. But yeah, Miami, I mean, that Miami game was, what was that, last Wednesday night?
Tuesday.
Truly, that game was a tough pill to swallow. I understand it's on the road. They actually went into that game as slight underdogs, which is crazy because Miami is the bottom of the ACC standings. I get it, the road swing, all of it. Then they're coming off of a triple overtime game. That was a tight turnaround. I'll give it to them, right? Saturday, you play triple overtime. Tuesday night, you flew down to Florida and you have to play another game. So, but that Miami game that was one of those games where you watch and you want to talk about a lot of fight on Saturday against Boston College. Was not seeing a lot of fight against Miami. I don't know if they were tired. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, that Miami game was probably the worst game of the year.
Yeah.
Mainly because they are at the bottom of the ACC and we're expected to win that game, but they didn't give any fight. We talked about the fight against Boston College, but we saw no fight against Miami.
Miami had one conference win, other than that, I believe, over Notre Dame coming into that game. They lost their coach in December, the legendary Jim Larinaga, becoming another one of the ACC coaches that we've seen, legendary, iconic coaches leave and retire in recent years. They have their interim head coach come in December, a guy who coincidentally actually has ties to Central New York. He was a coach at Cornell for a lot of years. But, I mean, Miami's just been a mess this year. Like, they can't even buy a win. And to go down there and to lose at Miami, it was just like it seems like every time with this team, you get one positive step, right? You went in triple overtime. All right, they showed a lot of fight. That was nice, even if it is Boston College, and you take 3 steps back.
That was like 1 step forward, 5 steps back.
Yeah,
like
right.
that was really as low as it gets, barring them not making the ACC tournament. That's pretty much the lowest that it gets.
Yeah.
To lose to a team like Miami, like you said, it's like you feel like there is a little bit of momentum, but I think that is why this entire season has been collectively this like tough pill to swallow, is because it's not just a matter of the fact that A, Syracuse doesn't win games that they shouldn't win, and B, they're sometimes not winning games that they should win.
Right.
What's going on?
And you heard Autry after that game. That was the first time I at least remember him. I mean, we watched it from afar because we were not down there. But in the post game, he said, "This one's on me. Like, this is on me." And he really got on them. That he said that game was a lack of effort, which I think was apparent to everybody watching.
Yeah, we're fine. Like I said earlier, Sam. This team, for some reason, find ways to lose this year. They might play good for about 38 of the 40 minutes, 35, but they'll find ways to lose at the end. And what's going to be big is these last 5 games. I'm anxious to see. I'm truly anxious to see if they're really going to fight for Adrian, if they're going to fight for their coach and show that, we are a good team. We're just, finding ways to lose. But these next 5 games are going to be very important. We're trying to get in the ACC tournament, and, once you get in the tournament, anything happens. We can ask NC State that, and they went far last year, and they were like I think, a 9 or 10 seed.
That was just a great story.
Yeah, NC State was a fantastic story last year. I think you look at where they're going now and what they have left, which I believe is 5 games, starting with tonight against Pittsburgh, so it'll be 4 tomorrow. And at this point, they're playing for pride, right? Yes. They're playing to get into the ACC tournament, and they're playing for pride. And I think after a win like Boston College, the triple overtime, they come out of it. You're like, okay, Adrian Autry hasn't lost the locker room. They're still out there fighting for him. Then you have the Miami loss and the UNC loss, which we haven't even talked about yet. But the UNC game felt like a very winnable game, and they found a way to lose it. Again, the UNC, not the UNC of old, not the UNC that we saw last year. Definitely a lower grade year for that team as well. And so then you take last week into consideration. You're like, all right, have they lost? I don't know. It's ups and downs with this team, really. But they're playing for pride. I mean, to close out these next 5 games at Pittsburgh tonight, like, they're just playing to get in the ACC tournament, to avoid being one of those last bottom 3 teams that don't make it, and to try to show something in that tournament, like you said.
Yep, absolutely. This is what's left. Pittsburgh, NC State, Virginia Tech, SMU, Virginia. So you're right. 5 games, 4 after tonight. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Taking a look at the standings, as Ashley has explained previously, there are 3 teams that will not go to the ACC tournament. It's new this year. The reason why is because they added the 3 West Coast teams. So they decided they're still going to stick with the 15-team format. 3 teams will be left out. Right now at the bottom, NC State, Boston College, Miami. 4th to last, Syracuse.
Sure.
So they are fighting to get in it. If the season ended today, they'd be in, but they'd squeak in.
Yeah, and that hinges on that conference record, which I believe you have it there in front of you. I believe at this point NC State would have to win a few, and Syracuse would have to drop a few for that to happen. Because
but is that so unreasonable?
No.
Syracuse right now is at 5-10. NC State is at 3-11, and then Boston College and Miami are both at 2-12.
Sure.
So yes, essentially, I guess you're looking at something along the lines of NC State wins 2 or 3, Syracuse loses 2 or 3, and that's when you'd be like, all right, what's going to happen here?
Well, the positive thing we could say is that they play NC State, so hopefully they can win that game. That's going to be
that's a necessary win.
That is a need to win.
Yes, yeah, we're going to need to win that.
Have to have it.
You know, and I look at the Virginia Tech and Virginia; those 2 teams are, they're on the middle pack, but those are tough teams. Those are tough teams. We have to win 3 out of 5.
Yeah,
probably.
Virginia Tech and Virginia, he's right. Like, that's middle of the pack. That's winnable. Yeah. SMU closer to the top, but again, NC State right below them. So this is to me, if they don't make it into the ACC tournament, that is on them.
Yes, I agree.
It wasn't a scheduling thing. It wasn't you got screwed at the end of the year. It wasn't really tough competition when push came to shove.
Right.
They can make it into the ACC tournament. They probably should make it into the ACC tournament.
Essentially, NC State's a team you should beat. We've seen how that's gone a few times this year. And then your Virginias, your Virginia Tech, you're going to need to come away with a couple of those, or you're going to need to surprise against a Pittsburgh tonight or an SMU. I mean, I don't think Pittsburgh's out of the question. Pittsburgh, middle, upper of the pack in the ACC, but they struggle historically going to Pittsburgh, especially on the road. Syracuse has a tough time with that.
It literally is in a row. It's Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Virginia, all with 6 wins.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yep. So the NC State game is probably the biggest game out of those 5 that I would think that we would have to win.
Yeah.
Yep.
If they lose to NC State, all of a sudden you got problems.
Yes. Major.
Yeah, and we're not here to speculate. This podcast doesn't speculate, but my goodness gracious, we'll be having different conversations if it goes that way.
Yeah.
You want to get a chance here. Like you said, you're playing for pride, and you are playing to get into this ACC tournament. That feels like just necessary from the core of my heart.
Yeah, and listen, we know that's not the standard. The standard ship has sailed long off into the night earlier this year. Not the standard, but like at this point, we're just playing for some kind of pride, like you said, just to say that you got there, you weren't one of the 3 worst teams in the conference. Maybe you win a game or 2 in the ACC tournament, and then everybody feels a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, that matters, though.
Yeah.
Like, that would matter to me.
Yeah.
If I saw Syracuse get into the ACC tournament and win 1 or 2 games. No one is expecting them to win the entire tournament.
No.
But that is really the coolest thing about college basketball, is that anything can happen. It really does feel like once it hits March. So give yourself a chance. See if you can win a few games, shock some people, at least end on some sort of a high note. And I think it leaves people with a better taste in their mouths for the next however many months until we do this all again,
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the thing with our team is we do know this. If we get in the tournament, we're always scary. We're always scary, so anything could happen.
I do think that's true.
Yep.
I can think of definitely several Syracuse teams that all of a sudden we're in the tournament and then crazy things happen.
Yes.
They're making deep runs,
Yep.
which can happen to any team. But we'll see. I would just be interested to see kind of how this game ends. Does anyone have final thoughts on Ashley has a
I
thought.
have a final thought.
Okay.
I will say, like, posing this question to anybody listening and to you guys, does it take any of the juice out of right? We're approaching March Madness season, usually such a fun time of year, and Syracuse wasn't in it last year. They weren't in it the year before. Whatever. I understand the drought that's been going on here. This is going to be the first class at Syracuse, 4 years undergrad class, to not see a tournament team, which is tough to swallow. But does it take it? Because I feel like I'm approaching, right, March Madness season. Like, I love it. I get so into it usually. But just with Syracuse so on the outside looking in, I'm not going to lie, it has taken some of the luster and the shine off of March Madness season for me. I don't even think it's just this year. I think it is how long it's been, the drought, that I'm like, haven't had anyone in the fight here in a little while, you know?
What do you think about that, Moten?
That's a tough call. You know, it's been grueling to watch and deal with for the last 4 years. Even when Coach Boeheim was, his last 2 years were kind of tough, and it's not good. We as fans love our orange, but we want to see them win, and this is a new bridge that we're running into right now, as far as not being in the tournament and not winning games, because we've been winning for so long that we've been spoiled. And it's okay to be spoiled when you win. And we just want to get back to that feeling.
I know that you know this, that it's been 4 years, you know what I mean, consecutively, that they'll be out of the big dance. But when you hear that, is that still shocking to hear, just as someone who has had such success with this program?
It hurts my guts, Sam. It hurts me. It really does.
Why?
Because I'm a diehard orange. I bleed orange. I know what it takes to win. I'm a born winner, and I'm used to winning games. And I know when we win, the whole town is happy, you know, and the whole city of Syracuse is happy. So it's been tough for these last couple of years.
I think it's almost a part of, like, winter in Syracuse, right? We've touched on this before, but that used to be what Jim Boeheim would say all the time. Like, all right, it snows up here a ton, and it's winter, and it's this long, arduous. But you always had Syracuse basketball, and we were spoiled for a while. Like, you said, it'd be every year. It'd be a no-brainer. It'd be or all right, towards the end of Boeheim's tenure, you'd at least be in the bubble. It would be exciting. Are we going to get there? Are we not? I feel like now approaching this 4th year without it. I mean, I was a sophomore in college at Syracuse the last time they made it. Wow. 4 years, long time. I just feel like you're losing the crowd a little bit.
Yeah. And end of the day, I still think and want to commend the Syracuse fans. I think Syracuse fans will always be Syracuse fans. Like, when you're a fan of a team, this happens, whether it's college or pro. Like, how many bad Mets years have we watched? And here we still are. Right. But I know what you mean. It's like, it's not just a matter of, you know, kind of losing some of the energy and excitement. For me, it honestly is this feeling of, where does this team go from here, and what needs to change in order for them to be successful again? Because I don't think that just by relying on some of the, you know, freshmen coming in next year, that's going to be enough. I really don't. I think more things need to change. I think the strategy in the portal needs to be better. Yeah. And honestly, I think there needs to be more money flying around from somewhere. Mm-hmm. This team needs more money that they need to be putting down and competing with some of these other ACC teams. That's just the reality of the situation. Yeah, and you said before, we don't speculate, but it leads to a little bit of speculation, right? Because you've seen the football program. Obviously, they've had that money, at least last year they did, to compete NIL-wise. So I think it's more, where is that NIL being allocated? It's a bunch of questions. And to your point, it's more than the freshman next year. I think, it's also not to always go back to the Adrian Autry thing, but that'll be his 3rd season. Is there some better in-game coaching decisions, right? Every coach is going to grow every single year that he's out there. Does he need, to add someone to the staff with the loss of Jerry McNamara that we've seen this year, how impactful that's been? Does the new GM, Alex Klein, who really got here in the summer, I think a lot of fans don't really understand that this year's team was pretty much built before he was here. He didn't have a lot of say in this year's team. Does he make an impact this offseason? So obviously, there'll be a lot of questions surrounding this team in the offseason. We're not there yet, but it's just, I guess, a good thing to speculate on as we approach March Madness season. Everybody gets so excited about college basketball, and it does hurt your heart a little bit to know that, all right, I'm still going to get excited about it. I'm still going to get into it, but my team right here at home is giving me nothing to be excited about, honestly. Yeah. We're going to have better players next year. I can honestly say that, and this is going to be a test to Adrian, Coach Autry, to really see if he can coach and has a true coaching style. I know it's hard
with guys coming in and out and, you know, the portal and everything. And like you said, Sam, going back to the money issue, a big loss, I think it hurt us, you know, as much as people might not want to say it, but when Adam Wiseman left, that hurt us. You know, let's keep it real. He brought a lot of people here.
Yep.
You know, Tom Brady's and Jalen Hurst's, and, you know, he was a good communicator and apparently a well-liked person when it came to recruiting. So we shall see.
Like, that was a freaking asset. Yeah. It's so funny. I haven't heard that name or thought about that name in so long, but it's so true.
Yes.
Like, especially now
yes.
in the heart of the Wild West of NIL.
Yes.
You needed an Adam Weitzman on your side. You really did. Like,
yeah.
And it is one thing to go out and say to people, and it is true, like, that every donation counts and the community can do what they can do collectively, but, like, you needed a shark. Like, let's keep it real.
Sure, every fan matters and every donation, every $100, but, like, who is really impacting that? The big donors, the big alumni donors. That is just the fact of the situation.
Like, you need rich people. And is that fair, honestly? Like, is any of that fair?
Well, that's why NIL's in the Wild West right now.
It really is. It really is. It's like, it is crazy to me to think that success is dependent upon money. But then again, in the NFL, isn't it that way? In all these places, isn't it that way?
Right.
All the professional leagues, so whatever. I guess it's just a freaking part of life. I honestly,
reality of life.
Yeah,
Sam.
it is the reality of life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know. Something about that at the college level not rubs me the wrong way. It's just something I'm going to have to get used to, you know?
Yeah.
It's a totally different kind of feeling. Because, like, you were mentioning them playing for Adrian Autry. Like, what about playing for each other? That was the thing that honestly made me feel upset, is when I was at the Boston College game, at halftime, they brought out the members of one of the teams from the 70s that went to the Final Four.
Yes.
I don't remember which year that was.
74,
so I think around 74.
Yeah.
That went to the Final Four. And we got an opportunity to ask them all questions. And, you know, one question that was asked was along the lines of, what do you think is different about the teams today versus the teams back then? And really, a lot of these guys were essentially just saying back then, like, we just really just played for each other. Yeah. We really didn't think about the individual. And they said in their own opinions that they feel like a lot of the players nowadays are thinking about me instead of we. And that, I don't know how you fix that, but I just thought it was interesting to hear from some of these guys who have just lived a lot of life and played a lot of basketball to hear that that's the way that they're viewing the sport now.
Yeah. It's not going to be fixed until they come up with a rule. Like we had talked about earlier, where guys that enter the portal have to stay at that school for at least 2 years, something like that, you know, in some type of realms. But it's all about the money, and it's not going to change.
Yeah, I think right. There needs to be some regulations on it, and there will be likely in the next, hopefully, 5 to 10 years for sure. But I also think a part of that, as we've talked about so many times, is you have to cultivate a culture. You have to give guys a reason to want to stay, a reason to want to be there, a reason to, again, not to always point out Fran Brown on the other side, but he's working with it in some capacity. So the basketball program has to figure out a way to work with it, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
End of the day, like you said, these are the rules of life, and sometimes those are just the rules and confines and games that you need to play. So he needs to figure out how to play this game.
These are the cards that coaches have been dealt right now, at least.
Yep.
So,
and one of the rules is this is very important, and goes to the youth. I'm talking to the youth that are in high school, that are thinking about going to a college or entering the portal. Deion Sanders said it, and it made a lot of sense to me. When you enter the portal, the last thing you want to hear as a coach is how much you got from me. That's the last thing. I don't want that type of player. I don't want that type of player playing on my team that just ask me how much are you going to give me. You know, talk to me about our schemes. Talk to me about what we do, our coaching style and our playing styles, things like that. But when you ask about the money off the break, you're being selfish.
And you know what? I mean, that's the same as in the professional, the real world, right? You interview for a job. You don't immediately ask how much money the position pays. That is further down the line, right? I mean, that would be unattractive if somebody walked into a job interview and immediately said, how much are you going to pay me?
You want to know about the culture.
Yes.
You want to know about the place. You want to know about the employees.
Yes.
What are their values, right?
What is your role going to be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the kind of game you got to play. But like you said, I think there also need to be some more genuinely like life coaches and, you know, maybe people who agents and people who understand how this process works. I do think we sometimes forget some of these guys like 18 years old, 19 years old, like they probably need a little bit of coaching now that contracts are being hopefully put into place at a young age, but we'll see what ends up happening.
Yep.
On that note, put in the damn guardrails. Let's get this done and let's get out of the Wild West of the NIL era. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week.